Welcome to Objections with Stan Willis. I'm Michael Morris. With me, Stan Willis, because the show doesn't make sense without him. Stan, thanks for coming today to your own show.
Thanks for
inviting you,
making me feel important.
Hey, I want to
I feel like I am like the king, like I am, very important.
Well, you can have it your way.
Like, is it like Burger King?
Yeah.
So, okay.
Do you know there actually was a Burger King? No, I'm just fucking around. I just want to see if you like, what was his name? Philip P. Pickle. I have a question for you because
That's a horrible name. That's the best you could come up with.
Well, he's the king of Scotland. I don't know if you know your history.
Philip P. Pickle.
I think he was in the movie Braveheart. We always have a history of taking care of the little guy in this country.
Yes, we're great at that.
Now, on this show, we're divided because I say, down with the little guy, move those boxes around for $8 an hour. You, on the other hand, seem to think they have rights. Is that fair?
I found out that minimum wage in Ohio is like $9.15.
I don't understand that because why do I see the signs that say it's up to $15 an hour to drive pizzas around?
Because they can't get people to come out and work, so they're paying $15 an hour.
What is a fair wage?
It's the wage that you make when you're working at the fair.
I shouldn't have said that. But only a man that's run the Tilt-A-Whirl poorly would say that out loud.
So fair wage, I guess, is what the carnies make, right?
But they should pay them more because those are creepy looking people. No offense to all of our carnies that listen. What I'm saying is, why is $15 an hour the number that they've grabbed out of the air? Because I remember maybe it was 6 years ago they wanted $12.
I can tell you exactly why. Because the poverty rate is about $15 is about $15,000 a year for a single person. So double poverty is $30,000 a year, and the average job in the United States right now pays about $33,000 a year, which is about $15 an hour.
So if you're making $9 an hour. You're making what, $24,000 somewhere in there?
Well, $10 an hour would be $20,000. So $9 an hour is like 18.
Jesus, have you ever worked a job like that as a child?
Oh yeah, my first job when I was in college. Well, I mean, I worked on the farms for $8 a bushel for picking beans and crap. But I think my first hourly wage job, I made $5.50 an hour as an engineer.
Oh my God, what a snooty prick! I made $4.10 working at Blockbuster. Do you know how important I was?
Engineering degree.
Do you understand what it's like to straighten those shelves at the end of the night when everybody's trying to find that Jane Fonda movie, Point of No Return?
You're a junior high dropout.
Yes, but but if I went back to that school today, I'd be the leading scorer on that basketball team.
You probably.
I'm 47, but I don't care. I tear those kids up. Well, the reason I'm asking about minimum wage is because we have a union strike that was averted from the railroad workers in September.
And they're threatening it again. And
Jim Biden, in all his wisdom, somehow got them to stop.
Wait, you mean the president?
I don't know what country you're from. I have divorced myself of this country.
You've divorced yourself.
So my house is my own country, and I am ruled by no one. But in your country, Biden might be the president.
There's a word for that. Those guys that do that. Sovereign man. You're a sovereign man?
My house is sovereign property.
I don't think you can actually do that.
Well, I filed the paperwork. I'm waiting to find out what happens. I sent it off to Marvel Comics. We'll see. But the railroad workers, the purpose of them wanting a strike is they want, instead of 6 days off, they want 15 because the hours they work, if you get sick, you can lose your job. There's a penalty for it. You only get 6 days total. Mm-hmm. So to avert this strike, Biden steps in and the Democrats in power step in. And the Republicans love this, by the way, because, again, it's more of a fiscal thing. Why would we pay them more? Why would they give them more time off?
Right.
But the Democrats push this through, and Biden pushes it through and then sees it as a success that the unions now have no
success.
Well, they can't strike.
Everything that Biden does is a success.
I know.
Especially walking up the stairs.
According to a lot of people that I know, Biden's doing really well, and I say, can you just put the fries in the bag and I'm going to go?
It's especially wonderful when he turns around to shake hands with someone who's not there.
I just assume that he was shaking. And if somebody gets near his hand, he just engages. Do you have a problem with the fact that the government now went over the head of the unions and now the workers have no rights? They gave them one additional day off. And if they strike now, they're striking against the government, not the railroad. How's that possible?
So there's an exception in the workers have a right to strike, but there are exceptions to the right to strike rule. And one of those is if the thing that these workers are doing is a national security issue, then supposedly the president can keep them from striking. But if those of us who are old, Nate might be too young to remember this.
Nate's never seen a train except Thomas.
This isn't. There's actually precedent for this situation because when Reagan was president, the air traffic controllers.
Is that 81?
I don't remember the year. It was early in his
presidency. 81
so it probably was 81 or 82.
Because it was like one of the first things that happened that this is going to be calamitous. But explain what he did.
Well, he said that they weren't. He initially said you're not allowed to strike because this is a matter of national security, and then they went ahead and went on strike anyway and said this isn't a matter of national security. So Reagan then hired a bunch of basically.
They just call them scabs.
Scabs is what they call them. People to come in and work. Some were military personnel, some were things like that. And then Reagan kind of moved the strikers out of the way, so that they couldn't affect the ability of people to come and do their jobs. And so it kind of it lessened the impact of the strike.
But it also set a precedent moving forward that if he did it, we can do it.
Right. So you get that kind of hanging out there. And I don't remember, I was probably 15, 16 when that happened. So I don't remember that much about it. I don't remember, the ultimate outcome was they were able to come up with another contract. The problem in this situation is, first of all, you got a lot more workers for the railroad, I think, than you had air traffic controllers that he was. And remember, in 1980, there weren't as many air traffic controllers as there are now. I mean, there wasn't as much flying going on in the 1980s as there is now. So the even though it's a highly specialized field, I think there probably was a stronger ability at that time in the labor force to replace those people than there is maybe for this railroad thing. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, because I think that he can order them not to strike. But if
everybody got sick on one day, there's nothing you can do about that.
A couple or 3 million people refuse to show up. What are you going to do?
Well, that's my question is, you can have, there's two things about this. Unions in this country are supposed to protect you. And essentially your union, the teachers union, the railroad union, the cops, they all support Democratic candidates. So in turn, those workers typically do that.
Right.
I don't care if it was if it was flipped the other way around. If I'm not getting what I want as a worker and I'm putting in the time and my union sells me out, I'm not paying my union dues anymore. I'm not going to work. I'm going to cause problems like that. The Jared Smalls, I forget his name, the guy at Apple. He got fired, or Amazon. He got fired. He was organizing these union busting things. And so they just silenced him on Twitter, took down his Facebook account, kicked him off YouTube, and to squelch that whole effort. If I'm a union person, I'm probably scared of the people who are, why would I pay my union dues now?
Right. Well, yeah, and there's there've been some Supreme Court rulings about fair share dues and stuff like that. People who are non-members and things like that in recent years that affect especially government unions. So there's kind of been it's like everything else that happens. The unions were a big deal back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. They were very powerful, and then in the ensuing years, they become less powerful. And legally, courts have kind of chipped away at some of the powers of unions and stuff. So unions aren't quite as powerful now as they used to be back in the heyday of.
When was the biggest one? Would have been what, the truckers union?
Yeah, the
40s and 50s.
Well, that was what's his face?
That was Hoffa.
But even before that, they were some of the industrial unions were the steel workers, and some of those were already starting to come around and have some power. But at the end of the day, like I said, this is going to be an interesting thing to watch play out, because I think the president can say, "Hey, you can't strike," but like I said before, if all of these people refuse to show up and do their job, what are you going to do?
Well, so
you can't. There aren't enough police and military people to go to everybody's house and make them show up. And then if you make them show up, how are you going to make them do their job? I mean, this is it's kind of silly to think that you're in a position where I can say you all are going to go do this or else. Well, what's your or else? and if the railroads shut down, I mean, what you were saying, $2 billion a week?
It's either $2 billion a day or a week is lost.
A day could be. It could
well,
be $2 billion
because there's so much cargo going across, because they're not just hauling coal.
We have supply chain issues now.
Well, that's the reason that the president stepped in, because this is such a catastrophic event. This isn't the truckers in Canada where, okay, things aren't getting delivered, so you're not getting big screen TVs. This is a lot bigger issue. So I have two questions. I want you to answer them in order. Do you believe in unions today? Not the theory of a union. Do you believe in the unions? And I'll tell you this is the reason why. When I was in radio, they could come and change your commission structure. So let's say it was 20%. You take the job as 20%. 6 months later, they could say your commission structure is now 9% and you have to sign this because you don't have a union. Mm-hmm. But you have to sign this. So you either sign it or you lose your job. But if you lose your job, you also signed one when you started, said you can't work anywhere else in media for 6 months.
Right.
So there's no one looking out for you. Even if you took it to a lawyer, you didn't get a chance. It was, here's the thing, sign it today. Well, you want this job, right? So you sign it. So now that you've signed it, they got you for 6 months. They can haggle with you. Today, they're paying those people 4%, and they have to keep signing it because they can't go anywhere else, because now it's a 1 year, you can't work in this market type thing. If you had a union, they would go, that's horseshit, because this is a right to work state in Ohio. Right. So people, when I was there, was like, we need to get a union. Well, we're going to pay union dues, so we're going to have them fight on our behalf. That doesn't work. But that's why I'm not for unions, is if I'm going to pay you, I better get some benefit out of it. And it's not a quarter an hour.
Well, I think, okay, so what I will say is certainly I believe in unions. I'm a Democrat.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot that. Yeah, I should have said, so you believe in unions. So there's the first question.
I'm not still, I mean, I have kind of changed my status to independent because I just can't go along with some of the weirdness that is infecting the Democratic Party now on their official platform. So
Nate, at this point, you put up a picture of Zelensky. I was ahead of Tulsi
Gabbard in getting out, though. I was before her. I got out before she did. So,
hold on a second. Check that timeline. Uh-huh. Look on. I want to see millions of people who recognize Stan got out before Tulsi. That's what I want to know. Put that as a poll on Put that on our non-existent Twitter page for this show.
At any point, but so certainly, I think that unions have a place and that they are important. I think that there are certain classifications of employees that are currently allowed to be unionized that probably should not be. Always in the past, people who were professionals when a part of being a professional, like an engineer or an architect or something like that. Part of being a professional was negotiating your own contracts. And if with the state of Ohio and with some of the other entities now, engineers are actually part of a bargaining unit, and they're actually part of the union. For the most part, I think those folks should be able to handle their own thing. I think that
the individuals or the union, the individuals.
I think that where unions become more important are where people are more prone to be taken advantage of by work, because that's what the unions are about. The unions are preventing you from being taken advantage of at work. The hard part is that in a lot of those situations, in a lot of those situations, the unions get a bad rap because there are some bad people, and the bad people tend to be the most vocal people, and so they cause some problems, and people get down on unions for reasons that I don't think are fair. Although some of them might be earned, but I think certainly in circumstances where, like the railroad thing, for instance. I mean, like we were talking about before, currently railroad guys get 6 or 8 days a year.
It's 6 days.
6 days in a year.
Yeah.
Off.
No matter what.
And that includes holidays, right?
So there's mandatory work days on holidays as well. Right. So even if you've got your 6, so say it's January 1st and you want Christmas off, you can't have it off.
Right.
Right. So your 6 days could be June 21st on a Wednesday.
Right. So you're talking about a job where, people that work for me don't work weekends.
They don't work at all.
We have 9 holidays, and they get 3 weeks of vacation a year, or 3 weeks of paid time off a year. And people that work for me are not working a physically grueling job like a lot of these railroad jobs are. And so when you got these guys and they're only getting 6 days off in a year, they're getting screwed.
Right.
I mean, but
their unions are the ones negotiating. Can you imagine what it was before
right.
Guys, we got to give them a break. We got to give them a day off. Okay.
Right. But 2. I guess my point though is that this is the kind of situation where these guys are powerless on their own, because, 1 or 2 of these guys goes to their boss and says, we're going to quit. Boss says, okay, I'll find 2 more guys. Right. But if all of them work together, then they can get themselves a better situation. I think they're asking for 15.
They want 15 days.
15 days in a year. And I think that includes holidays, right? So
not necessarily. So you get 15 days. It's not that they want Christmas off, because that would be impossible, just because it's kind of like a river. The water is always flowing, so you can stop it up, but the water's still going to keep going. There's no way.
Railroads are always running, and they can't get enough people.
Because I think even when you go to Chicago,
right,
the trains are always running. It doesn't mean they're fully staffed, but there always has to be someone there in case there's an incident. Right. So, but that seemed reasonable to me. You got 6 days. You want 15. I thought they could meet in the middle at 10. To get 1 is such a slap in the bag, and I couldn't understand why you didn't even get the chance, that the workers didn't even get a chance to get their voice heard.
Right.
So this was the second question. Do you believe in striking?
Do I believe in striking? Well,
not just the railroad, anybody. So if it's not a protest where we're going to stand out here and hold signs, we're just not going to do our shit for a week, because we as United States citizens, well, you guys need that thing to run, right? If you are of value and you're not being listened to, the only value you have is not doing that task.
And I think if you can't strike, what's the point of the union?
That's my point.
What are they going to do? If you don't do this, I'm going to pinch you. I mean,
how many times?
What's the other? What's
if
the
it's 3
alternative?
or more? No,
they can't. I mean, you don't want them to be threatening physical violence. They can't. If there's no striking, there's no point in having a union.
That's my point. So this ruling by Biden means, thanks, union, you fucked us. We don't even need you. So now I can get my money back I'm paying to the union.
Fundamentally, I'm a capitalist by nature. I believe in capitalism. But again, remember, I'm a Democrat, and I don't trust corporations. I don't trust people who come to power and grow something huge and end up with a monopoly to be fair. I don't trust them to. I think power corrupts. I think absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Absolutely, it does.
And so I don't trust the people who run the railroads to be fair in their treatment of the workers. So to say that the workers can't unionize, I don't know. You're just leaving them powerless. And, it was the railroads who, I mean, back in the day, the railroads were paying people in railroad script that you could only spend at the railroad store. Now think through that. What do you have if you've got a bunch of people?
Beef jerky.
No, if you've got a bunch of people who work for you and they're in shanties, right? And you're paying them in this script that they can only spend at a store that you run. What do you have?
But how's that any different than now is what I'm saying that is wrong.
What is that? That's slavery.
Right.
It's just got a different name.
But aren't all jobs essentially, so I always say this to my daughter, anybody hears it. You are trading your time for a dime, right? If I'm going to put in 8 hours and you're saying you're going to pay me $8 an hour, I have decided to trade my time and my effort for that in exchange.
Agreed.
And I think that we live in the dumbest time of all time. Okay. Mm-hmm. Even the cavemen were like, at least I can fucking draw. Mm-hmm. People don't get an education. They don't read. They don't know what's happening to them. And they take this job and they go, that pays $50,000 a year. Mm-hmm. Yes. Gross. So now let's call it 38.5. Great. How much is my house? Well, I can't afford a house, so I got an apartment. So that's $2,000. That just ate your ass out of $24,000. What are you going to do with the remaining $14,000? Oh, I got kids. So now you don't have that. What you just said about slavery, you are signing up for it. And here's your way out. Here's your ticket out. Credit cards.
Well,
but hold on a second.
They're a frightening thing.
No, this is what I'm saying.
A whole nother
this
level.
Is my door to additional slavery.
Right.
What we aren't solving, and we don't care in this country, are two things: education about finances and health insurance. Right. If you had both of those, you can actually make an educated decision. Right. But you can't if you've taken a job and you're like, our leaders will take care of it. Like you said, leaders are up here because they figured out a way out of this slavery into a different level.
Well, and that's the whole point of the middle class, right? The whole point of the middle class is to be able to have a job and it not be slavery, right? Or to be indentured servitude, let's call it, because
some people say slavery has a bad connotation.
Well, it's a stronger term, and it's not really descriptive of it. I mean, because I'm not controlling you in
a physical sense, but I am financially controlling.
Where what I was saying with the railroad script, I'm physically controlling you.
Right.
Because I'm giving you money, but you can't spend it anywhere but there. And I'm depending on how much of that you can buy. Right. I mean, I am physically dictating that to you. That you are trapped and you can't go anywhere else, because no matter how much of this I give you, it's no good. The railroad script.
Oh, what were you doing with your hand? People can't see it. I was like, you're going to control me for about 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Wow.
I'm lying. It's about a minute.
That's easy. Well, anyway, so I don't want to use. It's like more of an indentured servitude. But the idea of the middle class is now we have people who can have enough money that they can actually have savings, right? And they can be upperly mobile in the class because I can have savings, and so I can pass something on to my children. My children have a better chance of having more than I had. I mean, that's the promise of the middle class. That's why it works so well.
Well, the other part of the middle class is every once in a while someone finds a way to eject to the next level.
Right.
Some people will fall out. Right. But with no middle class, if everyone's at the bottom, you eject to a $50,000 a year job versus $30,000.
Well, but if there's no middle class, there's no $50,000.
Well, but that's what I mean.
I mean, if there's no middle class, then everybody's just debt serf.
Right.
And that's ultimately well, that's a whole different thing. But yeah,
But don't worry, because we're going to cut that on the next show. You've been listening to Get Your Ass on the Trail and the Train, and everything is going bad. Anti-union, pro-union. See you next week.